You know, I once got into an argument on Facebook with a white American boomer. Basically, I said that, you can't say that any particular race is inherently bad because there is bad behavior in certain races, right? Like certain Asian men mistreat women, just like certain white men and certain black men mistreat women. Uh, certain um, men of Middle Eastern ancestry will blow up buildings. I shouldn't say will blow up buildings, rather, they blow up buildings. Let's use that in the present simple tense. Uh, but it doesn't mean that everyone in the Arab race is a deranged anti Semitic terrorist, right? And I also said that, yeah, I mean, so if you say, for example, that, this race of men mistreats women, this race of men is uncivilized and they treat women badly, you're fundamentally being a racist because, you're judging people not as individuals, but by the conduct of the worst members of that race. Now, if it's culture, that's a different thing. But basically, I said you cannot judge people by the, by the worst examples of members in that race. And then he says to me like, well, it's not necessarily racist to say that certain men, certain races of men mistreat women. What if it were true? Like basically it's saying that, yeah, there are some races in this world that are inherently beastly and misogynistic that treat women badly. It's not racist to say so. It's just realistic, right? Okay, so there's this very racist British gentleman on the YouTube, the cesspit of alt-right, rather. He goes by the name of History Debunked, right? He's a elderly British gentleman, a very racist one at that, who always uses the same line of reasoning. I'm not racist. I'm just a race realist, right? And the thing is that I've noticed in my 32 years of existence that the people who are most defensive whenever people call out racism, whenever people even say the word racist, when the people who get very defensive, they are the ones that happen to be the most racist, right? Like, you remember the American gentleman I was talking about who was saying that it's not necessarily racist to say that certain races are misogynistic, woman oppressing. What if it were true? That is racist because you're saying that certain races are inherently bad. Certain races of men are inherently biologically bad, right? You're not even talking about culture. But the people who get most defensive about racism are racist. Well, if you're not a racist, you will not get so defensive if you basically if people call out racism, right? So this guy, this British guy, seems to have a bee in his bonnet about black people because almost every video he does, he makes some negative allusion to black people. And he will say, for example, I'm not a racist, I'm just a race realist. So basically, there are different categories of black people. Like, for example, other groups of blacks are better than this group of black, or Asians are better than blacks. If you are a race realist, you are a racist. And this guy even had the cheek in his latest video to capitalize on the Buffalo shooting. That when that American Nazi went and gunned down 10 innocent people, 10 innocent African American people. Yeah. He capitalized on it and he said, in his latest video, I'll put a link in the description box. He basically was saying, like, well, you know what? Why is it only when the attacker is white people make a video? No, that the media is all in a frenzy. But why is it when the attacker is black, nobody seems to take notice? Not even a word of condolence to the families who lost their family members, right? he only disgustingly he just capitalized on the fact that, well, you know, since he's a white shooter, of course, the whole world knows about it. But because if he was a black shooter, the media just hushes it up. So yeah, what does that say? What does that say when you're trying to capitalize on, uh, you know, on a tragic domestic terrorist attack in America for your own agenda, right? But that's not even the worst. I'm gonna play you a clip by this not racist British guy called We Are the Anglo-Saxons. At the end of this clip, I'm gonna give my commentary, and you can judge for yourself. You don't even have to take my word for it. Judge for myself whether this guy is a racist or not. Let's play it.
Hello again. When looking at the world in which we live, it is easy to see that it is, by and large, the creation of that ethnic group known as the Anglo-Saxons. After the Romans left Britain in the early 5th century, waves of settlers landed here from Western Europe, Anglo-Saxons and Jutes. They mingled with the Celtic inhabitants of the British Isles, and the result was a tremendously virile culture and people, the Anglo-Saxons. It gave birth to a new language, English. It is no coincidence that this language is now the language of the whole world, the one which is most useful if you are travelling. It was the Anglo-Saxons who by degrees became the English, and it was the English who explored and colonised much of the world. America was an Anglo-Saxon venture, and the Americans too became a great nation, an Anglo-Saxon nation, with a huge amount of influence in the world. The English gave the world the Industrial Revolution and almost all the things which make life comfortable and convenient in the modern world were devised in Britain and the United States, from electric lights and aeroplanes to television, telephones, space rockets and antibiotics. Our ethnicity has triumphed over all others, and without it the world would be a darker place. Success, of course, brings jealousy in other lesser breeds, which is why there is currently a campaign to remove Anglo-Saxon culture from universities and to denigrate the history of the Anglo-Saxons. Those engaged in those activities are pygmies, and we as Anglo-Saxons can laugh at such tricks. Every time we hear that great works of English literature are to be removed from this or that syllabus and replaced with mediocre and lacklustre books by black women purely because they are black and women, we see the seething envy of our achievements at work. This is the real reason why there is a campaign to remove references to great Anglo-Saxon statesmen such as Winston Churchill, and to talk instead about the primitive natives of this or that little territory. The glory of the Anglo-Saxons is too dazzling, you see. It is why for the last couple of years there have been efforts to erase Anglo-Saxons from history. The Anglo-Saxons, you see, were an ethnic group. They are an ethnic group. I belong to it myself. My DNA is 90% English, Scots and Irish, with 10% German and Scandinavian. I am an Anglo-Saxon. Efforts, though, are underway, and I give a link in the description to this video to a piece about this struggle, to abolish altogether the idea of Anglo-Saxons and replace it with the vague term early medieval. Anglo-Saxon, you see, is not just a historical period. It is a living ethnicity, as distinct as being an Arab, Jew, or Japanese person. This is disturbing to some people who hope that they can hide the marvellous inventions and cultural prowess of the Anglo-Saxons. I think that it is time for Anglo-Saxons to reclaim their identity and to take pride in this ethnicity, as proud as Arabs and Chinese people are of their own ethnicity. We are a distinct group. the Anglo-Saxons.
If this isn't just the most obvious chock full of dog whistles and race baiting, I don't know what is, I mean, this is a guy, who will tell you with a straight face that he's not racist. He's just a race realist, right? But clearly, you can see the way he divided the races on a hierarchy, into superior breeds and lesser breeds. You cannot get any more explicit than that, right? I mean, honestly, of course, when white nationalists talk about the accomplishments of Western civilization, this is a dog whistle for the superiority, the inherent moral and intellectual superiority of the Aryan race, right? That is a dog whistle. We know what you're trying to say, even though you're trying to say it between the lines. We can read between the lines, right? But this guy, actually, see, the thing about racist boomers is that they actually don't hide their racism so well. It just sticks out like a tick on a dog's ass. How do I know? Because we have a lot of these racist British boomers, well, quite a number of these racist British boomers in Southeast Asia as well, right? Because there are a number of elderly British gentlemen in Malaysia who came to Malaysia as young soldiers in the 1950s and 1960s, right? It wasn't known as Malaysia then, it was called Malaya. They came here as young soldiers in the 50s and 60s, and I don't automatically assume that you're some kind of a hero, yeah, just because you're some army man. You could be an absolute piece of dog shit as well, yeah. It could be an absolute imperialist piece of dog shit. So these guys came over to fight the Malayan communists, right? But they figured out, well, after the communists were defeated and basically Malaya achieved independence, they figured out that they liked the food, the weather, and the women, right? So they stuck around, even though, now some of them are nice. Many of them are racist as fuck, man. Some of these, some of these older British, I won't even say boomers, silent generation people who were fighting the communists in the jungle as young soldiers, who are now here as, expats from who came from the colonial times, still have that colonial mentality. Like, one of them actually told me straight up, you should see the merits in colonization. You should be grateful for the fact that, you now have the conveniences that the West has offered as a result of colonization. They still have this really arrogant sort of mentality. Not a humble mentality, an arrogant Western supremacist mentality. And this arises from the fact that, these people are from a generation at a time when the whites were the bosses. There was a time when Western colonizers in Asia would describe the locals with dictions such as dirty, filthy, dishonest, thieving, very Orientalist diction. Now, they have to do it through dog whistles and basically, speaking between the lines. But I can see very, very clearly that this man here, that history debunked fella, whose videos are put in the description box, so you know that I'm not taking this guy off context. These guys are racist as fuck, man. Yeah. So the thing is, when a British or American boomer or old man says that, people say I'm racist, but that's not true. I'm not racist. People just can't handle opinions that are different from their own. These snowflake millennials. You can almost be sure that this guy is a racist. But if he has an Asian wife, you can 100% be sure that he is a racist. But personally, as a Chinese person, I am not proud, right? I am not proud of the fact that I was born to the Chinese race. Just because you happen to have been born to a specific ethnic group does not give you the right to be proud of your ethnic group. That would be racism, right? To believe that your ethnic group is a source of pride. No, it's just an accident of nature that I was born to the Chinese ethnic group as opposed to having been born to a tribe in Kenya. Your ancestors are nothing to be proud of because you are not your ancestors, right? The only people who take pride in their ancestors and believe that being of a certain racial lineage makes them superior are people with nothing going on for them. Only a loser would take pride in his ethnic group. Either a loser or a Nazi. Choose. Which one are you? You see, just because you're born into a particular ethnic group does not make you superior or inferior to any others. So oftentimes when people say, white pride or Anglo-Saxon pride, well, even though the Normans invaded England in 1066, and when they say white pride or Anglo-Saxon pride, that is a dog whistle for Aryan supremacy, right? Like Hitler said the same thing as well. The Chinese can be proud of their culture. Why can't we? Yeah, you can be proud of your culture, but the moment you start being proud of your race, the moment you start believing that your race, of which you had no control over, is something to be proud of, sorry, you're either a loser or a Nazi. Choose.